Hello and welcome back to No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering by Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm Ash of Asheric Meditation. And we left off on section 6. That's where we will start. Happiness is not an individual matter. We've seen that our suffering is connected with the suffering of our ancestors, our loved ones, and with the planet itself. So we know our happiness is not an individual matter. If we are able to breathe happily, we can invite our ancestors to enjoy breathing in with our lungs. If we are able to enjoy walking, we can invite our ancestors to walk with our feet. When a young person tells his parents, "This is my body, this is my life, I can do what I want with it," he is only partly right. He doesn't see that he is the continuation of his parents and of his ancestors before that. This body is not yours alone. It is also the body of your ancestors. Your body is a collective product of your nation, of your people, of your culture, of your ancestors. So you are not strictly an individual, you are partly collective. There are many people who have enormous suffering, overwhelming suffering, and they don't know how to end this suffering. For many people, this suffering starts at a very young age. So why don't schools teach us how to manage suffering? If your suffering is so great you can't concentrate, you can't study, you can't focus. This suffering of each of us affects others. The more we can teach each other about the art of suffering well, the less suffering there will be in the world overall, and the more happiness there will be. Borrowing mindfulness. There are times when a case of suffering is so great it needs recognition from more than just one person. We all need help sometimes when suffering threatens to overwhelm us. We can borrow the collective energy of mindfulness of a group of practitioners in order to recognize and embrace the block of suffering in us. When suffering has become a seemingly impenetrable obstacle, we can learn how to draw on the support of others. If we can take the time to sit together and allow the collective energy of mindfulness to recognize and embrace our pain, we become a drop of water flowing in the river of awakened energy, and we feel much better. We may not have to do or even say anything. We just allow our pain to be embraced by the collective energy of mindfulness. Sometimes we may have to reach out more directly and ask for help. That can be a very difficult thing to do, but other people do want help if we only ask them. If we have loved ones who are suffering, one of the best things that we can do is to offer to sit or walk with them and offer them our energy of mindfulness and peace. It can help them calm down and embrace their suffering so that they can walk, sit, and breathe in mindfulness and take care of the crying baby inside them. Being there for another's sorrow. When you love someone, you want to offer her something that can make her happy. According to this practice, the most precious thing that you can offer your beloved is your presence. How can you love if you are not there? In order to love, you have to be there. To be there is a practice. It could be that very often your body is there, but your mind is elsewhere. You're lost in your thinking, your sorrow, your fear. You're not really there for her. So breathe in and focus your attention on your breath in. You are bringing in your mind. You are bringing your mind home to your body, and you become present. Simply to be there is the most important part of the practice. When you are truly there, you can go to the person you love, look into their eyes and say to her, "I am here for you." The most precious thing you can offer that person you love is your presence. It's not something you can buy at the supermarket. Collective suffering, collective joy. When people come together and produce the energy of mindfulness, concentration, or compassion, it gives rise to a wholesome kind of collective consciousness. This is a good thing to consume. At one talk I gave in Germany, there were 1,000 people listening peacefully, including 4 young mothers who were breastfeeding their babies. The infants were consuming the milk from their mothers, and they were also consuming the collective energy of peace. When the September 11th, 2001 attacks happened, I was in California about to give a public talk. Of course, the whole American nation was shaken by the news. The energy of anger and fear was tremendous, and I could feel it. It's very dangerous if we unconsciously allow that kind of energy to penetrate and to harm us. So the talk I gave that night was about calming strong emotions. When a whole community is afraid or angry, their energy is very strong, which can create a desire to strike back right away. But action pushed by the collective energy of anger and fear is not usually right action. We can start a devastating war very easily. Taking refuge in oneself. When people around you are practicing compassion, they'll be wiser and happier, not only individually, but also as a group. Combining our experiences and insights leads to a collective insight that can be wiser than the sum of its parts. Without a community, it's harder for a person to change anything. If you work in a hospital or a clinic or anywhere where you have to practice compassion with people in crisis on a daily basis, you know that having colleagues who support you in the practice creates a much more healing effect. A good environment allows the best things in us to manifest. A toxic environment can bring out the worst things in us. Everyone needs a mindful community for support. We can join together to create a healing environment wherever we are. Our family, our classroom, our workplace can all be mindful communities. When we come together and enjoy practicing mindful breathing, we produce a collective energy of mindfulness and compassion that is wholesome and very strong. In our daily lives, many of us are in toxic environments of mutually reinforcing suspicion, competition, greed, and jealousy. We consume our environment as a kind of food, and its good or harmful elements seep into us. You may find yourself in a negative environment you can't get out of due to the realities of a family's needs or financial constraints. In that case, you can be a force for positive change. Start by creating your own safe harbor, even if it's only one corner of a room or a desk. There are also wholesome communities online that you can join. Don't give up hope. You can live in such a way that shows compassion is possible in any situation. Set an example, even if it's a small one. Other people can learn from it. The best way to help others is to lessen their fear, craving, and violence, is to show them that there is another way. If love has degenerated into hate, it's possible for you to turn the garbage of that hate into a kind of compost to nourish the flower of love and bloom again. Collective action. When a group comes together and commits to practice mindfulness together, breathing together, walking together, doing some kind of good work together to lessen the suffering in the world. This is positive, collective action that can be very powerful. In the collective action, you can see the individual aspect. There are those who sit differently than others. There are some who focus more easily, some who need more support. In the collective, we can see the individual, and in the individual, there is the collective. There is no absolute individuality. There is no absolute collectivity. Anything you can do to lessen suffering in your community and in the world is known in Buddhism as right action. When you go to the supermarket, you can make the choice whether to practice right action or not. There are items for sale that have been produced by children who have no chance to go to school. There are items that have been made with materials that can be harmful. We are part of the collective whole, and even these individual decisions about what to consume affect the collective consciousness. I remember one day I went with some children to a hardware store. We visited all the time. I remember one day with some children to my apologies. I remember one day I went with some children to a hardware store. We visited all the items in the store. We only needed a few nails for a project, and we agreed with each other in advance that we wouldn't buy anything else. We spent over an hour in the store, learning about the origin and the effect of each item sold, and not buying anything but a handful of nails. We did that as a special group activity. You don't have to spend an hour every time you want to buy one item, but you can feel much happier when you know the things in your home are not infused with the pain of child laborers or poisoned fields. The whole world is our territory. We may think we are only responsible for our own suffering and happiness, but our happiness increases the world's happiness, and our suffering is the world's suffering. In Vietnam, there is a Buddhist folk tale about Mara, the personification of distraction, attachment, and despair, the devilish character that Ananda tried to keep away from the Buddha's cave. They say that before the Buddha's enlightenment, when the world was under the reign of Mara, there was a lot of war and violence. People suffered enormously, but they reminded themselves, if there's Mara, then there is Buddha. We don't need to worry. The Buddha will appear eventually. On the day the Buddha became enlightened, he sat very quietly. Mara said, "Who is this guy sitting so quietly?" Mara didn't disturb the Buddha. He just allowed the Buddha to sit. After sitting in meditation, the Buddha stood up and walked mindfully, freely, and peacefully. Mara asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" The Buddha said, "I see that this earth is a beautiful place. The scenery is lovely. The early morning is beautiful. The afternoon and the evening are beautiful. I see these wonders and it makes me so happy. I don't need to have any possessions or wealth. I don't need anything. All I need is the opportunity to sit still and to be able to walk on this beautiful planet." Mara thought that this wasn't a bad request. "Okay, you can sit as much as you want, walk as much as you want," he said. After a few days later, the Buddha asked, "I have a few friends, actually. I have 1,250 friends, and they all want to sit. They all want to walk in mindfulness. Can we have an area here to sit and walk mindfully and peacefully?" Mara said, "Sure, if you sit and walk, that's fine. How much space do you want to have for practicing sitting meditation and walking meditation?" Back then, they didn't have any fancy measuring devices. The Buddha said, "I have 3 robes. If you agree, I'll take off my outer robe and I'll throw it up in the sky as high as I can. The shadow cast on the earth by my robe is the land I want to have for sitting, walking, and living mindfully." Mara said, "Well, the most it could be is just a few miles. Okay." The Buddha rolled up his robe and threw it up in the sky. The robe went high, high, high up. Then it opened, and the shadow of the robe covered the whole planet. From then on, the Buddha and his students walked all over the earth, practicing compassion and mindfulness and helping people suffer less. We all have the right to do the same on this planet, lessening suffering and increasing happiness. This earth is not just the territory of Mara, but also the territory of the Buddha. The art of happiness. The essence of our practice can be described as transforming suffering into happiness. It's not a complicated practice, but it requires us to cultivate mindfulness, concentration, and insight. It requires first of all that we come home to ourselves, that we make peace with our suffering, treating it tenderly, and looking deeply at the root of our pain. It requires that we let go of useless, unnecessary sufferings, release the second arrow, and take a closer look at our idea of happiness. Finally, it requires that we nourish happiness daily with acknowledgement, understanding, and compassion for ourselves and for those around us. We offer these practices to ourselves and to our loved ones and to the larger community. This is the art of suffering and the art of happiness. With each breath, we ease suffering and generate joy. With each step, the flower of insight blooms. That was section 6 of No Mud, No Lotus. Come back for one more reading, Practices of Happiness. This one will be a little bit longer. And we will see you again in the next video. Thank you.